Oh, we're on.
I'm on. I don't know why, like, everything I want to say motherfucker right after it.
Oh my god.
It's on, motherfuckers.
Oh my god.
I can't help it. I'm sorry. Not sorry.
She's sorry, not sorry, because we say what we want to say.
I know, but I do feel like I need to control my swearing a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes. But I'm okay with it.
Even
I don't
Cassius
judge
is
you.
like, you said the F word. Like,
Yes.
oh,
Does
I
he?
did this. Sorry. I won't do it again.
So, welcome to Rawbabes101. Your
What?
host, Tiffany Kristen. And we have a very special, magical guest, Miss Natalie.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be sandwiched in the middle between
I love
a fiery mermaid and
Unicorn.
oh,
Yes.
a unicorn? I love that.
I
it's
love
magic.
it.
I love it.
Then you're a Pegasus.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Starseed.
Because I did want to color a unicorn because, like, you're like this, like, magical healer.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about
Oh,
you.
We're all magical healers.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
are. And why are we magical healers? Oh, but we weren't going to start there. Too late.
Too late. Why are we? Why share?
We did a thing.
We did a thing.
Yeah.
We all three of us got our Reiki level 1 together just last week.
We have our first symbol.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, don't share the magic symbol.
Sacred. Sacred.
It's sacred.
But it's good because we want
Oh yeah,
it.
we're doing yes.
Oh. There you go.
We're giving you guys all our first symbol Reiki healing right now through
Channel it.
YouTube.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think about it?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It
It's,
was-
It was incredible.
It was next level. Literally.
Right?
Yeah. Mind blowing. Amazing.
and you're feeling energetically shifted a
Yeah.
bit, and
Yeah.
you were saying it's coming out a little bit.
Yeah.
Share.
Yeah. So remember Shiona told us we were going to have like this 21-day cleansing cycle, and the Reiki energy was going to be going through our body, going through all the chakras, removing all the blockages we might have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I clearly have blockages. And
We
that shit's
all
coming
do.
out.
Yes.
Yeah. Just like weird emotional stuff coming up from when I was a kid. And just, I don't know, different feelings in my body that it's awesome.
It
But
starts
it's,
awakening.
it's noticeable. Yeah.
It's waking up.
Yes. And I also had like crazy tingling in my third eye, which I've never had
Oh,
this week.
fantastic!
Yeah.
So you're just like rubbing it
Yeah.
clear.
I was like,
so you
oh
can
my
see
gosh,
clear.
it's tingling. Yeah.
Well, let's give a shout out to Miss Shiona
Yes,
from
Shiona.
Soul Sessions. Shiona with
Soul Sessions with Shiona.
Soul,
Yeah.
Soul Sessions with Shiona. Girl, say that 5 times.
Mm.
Wow.
No kidding, right?
But Shiona was amazing, and I really like her non-conventional ways. She's a
Mhm.
rebel, and
She threw her own curveball in there.
she
Which
sure did.
we learned obviously the basic and the tradition, and we respect it on another level.
Mhm.
But she also threw in some very magical learning, and it's like the dimensional stuff was so
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
12 dimensions like within our body and stuff. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well,
This
and we
blew my
got
mind.
to expand a little bit on that conversation, and I don't think anybody else would be able to have a conversation like that when you're getting your. Do you guys know your eyes are almost the same color? Holy shit.
Oh, Twinsies.
Dude, matchy.
Maybe we were sisters in our past life.
Maybe.
Could be.
Maybe.
So
But yeah,
that's
it was amazing.
Amazing. So I want to start with sharing how I actually met Natalie, because this is another magical story, spiritual, divinely guided. So we had actually just finished recording on like an episode. This was maybe 6 months ago at least. Do you think, Natalie?
You and Tiffany?
No,
It was in
6 months ago since
Yeah.
I met you.
It was in October.
Okay.
So roughly.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. So last October, we finished recording an episode, and Tiffany and I are going to Brown's, and I've got Cassius, and we drive a different way than I would normally drive to go to Brown's. And he sees this park, and he's like, "Mom, I want to go to this park." And I'm like, "Weird. It's not a nice.
It's not.
It's
a
not
nice
a. It's just like a.
Which park?
It's actually from our old school, Westview.
Westview. It's across the street from
It's
Westview.
that old
There's
little.
a dog park.
It's not. It's not like it's
That
very
part.
it's very old. And so
Westby Park.
Mhm.
We used to go there and smoke all the time.
and that's our high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, Cassius, I'm like, we'll go after we go to Brown's. So on our way back, I don't even know why I went the same direction.
Yeah.
And Cassius was like, Mom, let's go to that park you said. I'm like, what? I did say that. And obviously my word is very important to me. So I'm like, okay, we'll go. So I pull over, get in. We're at this park, and there's this woman there with these two kids. And there's a girl and a boy, and Cassius is playing, and we're kind of interacting. And I just had this very, like, strong call to talk to this woman. And she's like, I don't know, looks pretty young, but she's like, I'd say like older than my mom's age probably, but around there. How old is she?
She's grandma. She's
Yeah.
so she's 60, 61.
Okay, there you go. And she
Yeah.
looks great. And I just had this feeling like I shared with her some things that like I wouldn't normally share with just a stranger that I've never met before. And we're talking, and she ended up telling me that she had lost her husband. And I'm like, there you go. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is a divinely guided encounter for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's something here. I just knew intuitionally. I'm like, okay. So we're talking about the loss, and I'm telling her, you know, kind of like spiritual stuff, and we talked about his passing, and long story short, I end up starting to talk to her about the medical medium, and I'm just like, celery juice is incredible. It's changed my life. And she's just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, okay, here it is. She's like, so my daughter, she's gone through all these health things, and she's like, your mom's like, I can't believe you're telling me this right now, because my daughter's been talking about this medical medium and drinking celery juice every day, and I'm thinking she's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what the heck is like my daughter doing? And so the very fact that I just confirmed every single thing that you have been talking to her.
Heavy metal detox.
Yes, and
celery
heavy-
juice.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So she was just like mind blown, and I'm mind blown. So I'm just like called to be like, okay, well, just give your daughter my information, and we'll go from there. Just enjoyed our conversation, carried on, and it was just like, that was a really cool encounter. And then I don't remember, did I give your mom my information? Or did I
I
get
can't
your
remember if
information?
you added me or she.
Because I
Maybe
just
you
remember
added
getting a
me.
message from you.
Yeah, you added me, I think. And then my mom told me you'd be adding me on Instagram.
Okay, there you go.
And then I messaged you.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you can share the message, because
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember that when my mom told me that she met you and that you had been talking about medical medium, celery juice, I was like, I got emotional. Like
That's
my
what I was
eye,
saying.
like I was almost in tears, because like you said, my mom said she thought I was crazy. Like no one I knew was doing any of the medical medium stuff, so I felt really alone in what I was doing. And then when she told me that, I don't know, I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. There's this person near me who's doing this. And I don't know, it was like probably a bigger reason than I knew why I got emotional, but I
course.
did. And I messaged you and I told you that. And yeah.
it was so magical.
Yeah.
And I was like so grateful too, because we ended up talking back and forth for a really long time. And we talked about your dad, and we talked about like the spiritual stuff, and
We met at a park.
then
Again.
and then we met at a park after we were talking on Instagram.
That sounds so weird.
I met at a park.
We met at a park.
I'm gonna meet you at a park.
Then
Only bad things happen when that goes
and then we ended up, we planned to hang out, and then that's when we went to the
Yeah.
park, and we had the kids together, and then it was just like blah, 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 like back and forth, and I'm like, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to go see Nikki. You need to go do Reiki healing, and like talk about my counselor. I'm talking about my counselor. We're talking about like all these things.
Yeah.
But I think what we should do now is like back the fuck
truck
up and kind of talk about your journey and what happened with you, and take it away, girl.
Okay, I
It's
don't know how
yours.
far back to go, but
Whatever you feel called to do, to share.
I mean, so when I'd received that message from you, or when you added me on Instagram, I had just gone through this crazy thing with my health, a flare up. I guess you could call it a flare up. But
She quoted that shit.
I quoted quote unquote flare up of what I was diagnosed with, which is called adult onset Still's disease. So I'll kind of start from the beginning.
Okay, Tiffany just heard something.
What was that? I heard it
Okay.
too, but I ignored it.
So this is cool. This has been happened multiple times, but that's walkie-talkies.
Oh my
And
gosh.
but they're off.
But they're not. They're on right now.
Yeah. So it's just
That's
spirit.
something.
It's probably your
Yeah,
dad. It's
yeah.
probably your dad. He's proud of you.
Hello.
That is so
Crazy.
cool. Okay.
I have goosebumps now.
I have goosebumps.
I have
too.
goosebumps too. Oh my goodness. Okay.
You can't make this up. It's going
You
crazy.
can't.
I'm checking this shit out.
You better check that out. Report back.
Go check if one is on. So it's in, they look like Spider-Man, and it's a little red, and it's to the very far left.
Does that happen a lot? I remember because you told us that this was happening.
Yeah, so this is one on,
It's not off.
and it's crazy actually because since we got these at Christmas, I bought them for Cassius. It does this often, and it's very cool because
So now they're off.
So we'll see. Were they on?
They
One was
were
kind of on.
like half on, half off.
Yeah.
And that's okay because that's very much how communication happens, whether it's a TV, through a
Yeah.
phone, it can be through anything.
It happens to us often, actually.
Yeah.
Our shit always kind of glitches.
Crazy.
Okay, back to
Yeah.
you, girl.
Cool.
So, what were you diagnosed with? I think that would be.
So I was diagnosed with adult onset Still's disease. You can call it Still's disease, which is it's very similar to like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. It's in that same family of like an autoimmune disease, or my rheumatologist would call it like an auto-inflammatory disease.
Okay.
So I was actually diagnosed with that when I was, I think, 19 or 20. I had weird stuff happen to me. Like as a child, I remember being in elementary school and I remember my hands swelling up or like my feet. Like I remember feeling like I had a rock in my shoe
wow.
and being like, ow, this hurts. And then when I went to go take off my shoe, there was no rock. It was just like a swollen bump on my foot. So it was really weird. So from the time I was in elementary school, like I remember my parents taking me to the doctor and me getting tested for gout and all sorts of things, but nothing ever came out of that. And so I was fine. Like I lived a normal childhood. My high school years were fine. I graduated. I went to SFU I was doing my business degree at the time. And I think it was in my first year where I all of a sudden had these fevers that started and it felt like I had a flu. So I just thought I had the flu. And then it kind of went on for too long to the point where my mom took me to the doctor and was like, hey, this has been weeks, like something's wrong, and I ended up getting tested for all this stuff. It was out of the scope of what my doctor could, diagnose. So she sent me to a rheumatologist. I went through all sorts of testing, and they ended up diagnosing me with adult onset Still's disease at that time. And
Crazy.
basically, there's no like test that you can get that says you have Still's disease. It's like an elimination of like they tested me for lupus because I had symptoms very similar to lupus, and the test was negative. And stuff like that. So it's kind of like process of elimination. So anyways, I was diagnosed with that. I got put on steroids at the time, like prednisone,
Crazy.
which snapped me out of my flare-up, and on my way, I went.
Did you work out?
I had roid rage.
You did it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Roid rage is a real thing.
Okay,
Wow.
so how old were you again? When
So
you were
I
on
was-
steroids.
Oh, I was on it. I was on steroids at multiple points throughout my life. So not when I was around 19, that was my first flare-up. And then I continued on with my schooling, and I had another one, like a year and a half, 2 years later. I don't know the exact time.
And
I've had several
What would a
flare-ups.
flare-up look like?
It would look like a flu. Like it would start where I would have.
You'd be sick.
Yeah.
like, very sick.
Really, like I would have high fevers. Like I'm talking like 102, 103 for weeks. Weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Like I'm talking like 4 to 6 plus weeks at a time.
Turn you into a vegetable.
Yeah, high fevers, super, I would go super anemic, so super weak and fatigued.
Oh.
And then at that time, it was mainly just affecting my joints. So what I was told at the time is that basically I had this autoimmune disease where my own body and immune system was attacking different parts, like whether it was my joints, or your body's attacking your joints, or which we'll talk about, my body was attacking my brain or my heart
Oh
or
my God.
things like that. So whatever, like my the symptoms that came along with the fever and everything kind of varied, but in those younger years, it was mainly my joints, which was crazy because, yeah, just what teenager, like early 20-year-old understands that at that point? Like it was just, yeah, it was
think
weird.
something's wrong with you.
Yeah, but
It's not a very
And especially when
positive
you're not getting
twist.
answers.
exactly. Well, what I had accepted is that I have an autoimmune disease. I have an autoimmune disease. My body attacks itself
That's so
for
messed
whatever
up.
reason, and this is just something I have, and I deal with it. And the crazy thing is back then, I just accepted it, and I didn't really think much of it. It didn't bother me. I felt like a normal person in between my flare-ups. Like here, I would have these flare-ups, and I'd be not in a good place for like a couple months. But then in between, it was like
Normal, back
it was
to
normal.
normal.
Like nothing. I didn't have any other symptoms. I think at one point, I was put on some other different type of medication. It was called methotrexate and Plaquenil. But it started like creating deposits in my eyes, so they had to pull me off.
Holy shit.
And so I was,
Deposits? What
I don't know what I had to go see an ophthalmologist every month, I think it was, or every few months,
Your
and
whole
they'd have to
li- oh
look
my God.
while I was on this medication.
Oh.
Because those are the side effects, the possible side effects.
Okay.
So I would go see an ophthalmologist. They would look in my eyes. If it was okay, I'd keep going. And then finally it wasn't okay. And they were like, okay, no more medication for you. And they yanked me off the medication.
It's just basically trial and error on you.
Exactly. Well, I think these are
Nobody
common
knew.
medications that they use for,
This sort of thing.
yeah, like these types of autoimmune diseases to
Band-Aids.
prevent to prevent the flare-ups.
Holy
But
But what at the
I was
time
taken off.
nobody was thinking what's causing the flare-ups. To
I
begin
had
with.
I wasn't thinking. Oops, I think I'm bumping my mic.
That's okay.
I wasn't thinking I was just a 20-year-old, I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking anything of it. I just listened to the doctors.
Yeah.
I did exactly what they recommended. And then I think it got to a point, one of the flare-ups I had when I was in maybe second year university is I got meningitis. Not from bacteria, not from a virus. It was in
What?
my spinal cord and brain.
Oh, honey.
I remember, I've
Wow.
had quite, serious flare-ups to the point where this one time I had, an awful headache. It was, to the point where I was squeezing my head. I remember it was so awful. I couldn't drive because I could not turn my neck,
Wow.
far enough either way
Wow.
to shoulder check. And I remember my mom calling my doctor and being like, this is what's happening with her. And, what should we do? And they were like, take her to emergency. And so we were sitting in emergency, me and my mom, and the ER doctor was like, you know what, in order to test for meningitis, because I was presenting meningitis, but he was like, you look too well to have meningitis. And in order to diagnose for it, you have to get a spinal tap. You have to they do a lumbar puncture into your spine.
It's not.
And of course,
fucking
I
good.
didn't want to do it, but my mom was like, no, you test her. You test her now. And so they did it, and sure
Because
enough,
that's dangerous.
I
Well,
had
I mean, the
it that
meningitis
same
is
day.
dangerous.
Meningitis is super dangerous. That same day, a kid, not a kid, probably a teenager, a young person, died in the hospital. I remember the doctors
Oh,
telling me
no.
that. And so I was in rough shape.
You're lucky.
I was in and out of consciousness because it's inflammation of your brain. Your meninges, right? Meningitis, your spinal cord and everything. I remember the nurses coming in and being like, what's your name? Where are you? Why are you here? Literally multiple times a day to ask me. And then I remember leaving the hospital and having to have an IV port in my hand. And having to go back to the hospital twice a day to do, because they had to finish up their
Wow.
antibiotics. And I remember going to school with I remember going to university classes
Wow.
with this IV port in my hand.
Wow.
What was I doing? I don't know. But yeah, so there was that. And then finally I got to a point, so I don't know, I've always had this fire lit in me where I would just get through the shit. Get through it, keep going. Finished my business degree, ended up doing, I wanted to become a chartered accountant, a CA. So I remember getting a job at a Big Four accounting firm. It was all awesome. I don't know how I ended up getting through all of that, because in order to do my CA, I was working busy season hours, doing CA School of Business on top of it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so fast forward, I got through all that somehow without being on medication or anything, just somehow I got through it. And then in 2013, I remember, was a pivotal year for me because I had a flare up, and I guess all of that got to me, the busy season and blah, 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 after I was qualified. And so I had a flare up, and for some reason this time I had known someone who had been to a naturopath, or for some reason I ended up at a naturopath somehow.
Okay.
One of my friends or so.
I wish you could remember how. I
I
love
know,
the how.
and I think it might have been one of my friends or something who had said, have you ever been to a naturopath? Have you ever tried that? And I hadn't. And so I started seeing my naturopath, who's in Port Moody, Dr. Jill Scott. She's amazing. And I remember her, actually she's the first one in 2013 who told me, the body doesn't attack itself.
Yes.
The body is the body would never attack itself.
No.
And she was
Your
the
body
first
loves
one.
you.
Yes. She was the first one who said, there's often viruses behind
Yes.
these diseases.
Root
And I remember
causes.
her talking about EBV at the time. But it kind of...
EBV is Epstein-Barr virus for everybody. This is
Epstein-Barr
a big thing.
virus. And if you've read about Medical Medium, that's a big thing that he talks about.
In all of us.
Yeah.
All of us.
Totally. And
That's
it can
the
be
root
behind
cause.
so many conditions.
I don't
So,
even know much about it.
well...
Well,
crazy. You will.
you will eventually.
Oh, you will. So anyway, so she had told me this, and she put me on some supplements. She put me on turmeric supplements.
Woo.
She put me on omegas and a good quality multivitamin. And she told me, she advised to stop eating gluten, dairy, processed sugars. Through her, I also started to look at the products that I was putting on my body and in my body, such as birth control pills, deodorant with aluminums and metals in them, makeup, and so I kind of overhauled my life a bit.
Yeah,
Good
think that's a fast track overhaul, isn't it?
So I cleaned up my diet. I started taking these supplements. I cleaned up all my products, and that period was the longest period I've ever had where I was well for 5 years after seeing my naturopath between 2013 and 2018. I was totally fine. No
That's
symptoms, no nothing. Got married, had a baby. And then it was with my second child that I had another flare up. And honestly, I think it was twofold. I was nauseous as shit. And I was eating crap. I was eating chicken nuggets and bread and crap.
Everything that you weren't doing before for the 5 years of you being
Yes, exactly. So I was kind of eating bad things, and I wasn't taking good care of myself at that time. So this time I had a flare up, and it affected my heart. So I was 6 months pregnant with Logan, my second child. And I had pericarditis, which is inflammation of the heart. So I was having extreme, and on top of all the fevers and stuff, I was having extreme chest pain to the point where I could not lay down, excruciating pain. And I remember being...
Well, that's scary as shit.
It was scary, right? It was really scary. And of course, I was terrified for this baby that I was growing. And here I was, this pregnant woman, in and out of the emergency room. And... the doctors did not want to put me on steroids at the time because I was pregnant. But it got to the point where it was becoming dangerous. And so finally they put me on steroids, prednisone again.
What about your diet?
Snapped out of it. I think at that point I had cleaned up really quick what I was eating, but it's too late. It's too late at this point.
Yeah,
I've
you
already
fucked it up.
I've already awakened the beast.
Ooh,
right?
I like that.
Yeah. So,
not that I like that, but yeah.
it's true. I had
It's true.
awakened the beast. And so anyways, I got put on prednisone and snapped out of that. I had my baby, Logan, at the time, who was perfectly healthy. He was
Awesome.
fine. I weaned off the prednisone and I went on with my life.
Okay.
And I was unscathed at this point. There was no light bulb moments at this point. But the next one is where everything changed. So the next flare up I had was in February of 2020. March 2020. Interesting timing, right? With everything that was going on. So this time was the most serious, crazy flare up I've ever had.
It almost sounds like it's an allergic reaction, and every time it flares up, it's getting worse.
It's a slow, painful, progression of getting.
It's like my kid got stung by a bee once, and he was fine. The second time,
It's getting worse.
It was getting worse.
Yeah.
Last time it looked like I took a bat to his head.
Oh my gosh.
He got stung right on the ear, and his whole head
Holy shit.
Wow.
swelled up to the point of his shoulder. But get this. Because it was so swollen, gravity had to take place eventually.
Oh.
So his whole face started like,
Oh my god.
poor kid. He was so
Cohen?
ugly. Yeah.
Oh.
Anyways, carry on.
Oh, yeah, but that's basically what happened. It was getting worse. So this time I ended up, again, like always, starting out with a fever. And of course, I'm hoping it's the flu. Like, who the hell hopes for the flu? I hope for the flu. And then I started getting this neck pain and headache. And so I messaged my rheumatologist. We are on a texting basis.
Yeah.
And I told her what was happening. She's like, go to emergency. And of course, it was just because I had meningitis in the past and she was worried about that. So went to the ER. Okay, this is where stuff gets crazy. So I had the ER doctor, again, trying to do the lumbar puncture, trying to stick this needle in my spine. And it was not going in. It wasn't going in.
Ouch. And this is, a spinal tap is not pleasant.
It's painful.
This is your spine, man.
It's your spine. I'm laying on the hospital bed, like on my side, and they're trying to jab this needle in, and it was not going in. And finally, they said, "Okay, I think we need to get like an anesthesiologist,
Yeah.
like the ones who
A
do
professional, which
A
should have been the
professional.
fucking first time. It's your spine.
Yeah. So he comes down and he goes, "Okay, you know, we've seen your blood work. Your blood counts are kind of off. My platelets were low, and if you know, platelets are basically a part of your blood that allows it to clot when it needs to clot. So if you have low platelets, what that means is if you get a cut, you're going to just keep bleeding. You're gonna bleed. So he said, your platelets are low, so I want you to repeat your blood work before I stick a needle in you, basically.
Oh, wow.
And so they did repeat it, and it turns out that my platelets were so low that if he had done the lump, I would have been bleeding out. Right?
So this was the reason why it wasn't working.
It wasn't working. That's where I
very
said
lucky that it didn't work.
I was lucky that it didn't work because I could have,
It wasn't luck, my dear.
No,
it
it was
wasn't
your-
luck.
it was
It
your-
was
Your angels.
right? So
Yeah.
that was crazy, right? So he just said, I can't do this on you, and they started me on all these antibiotics precautionarily, just in case it was meningitis, because it can kill you if it is. Anyways, and that's where shit went south, like really, really, really south. Part of me thinks that it was the antibiotics that made everything go south.
Mm-hmm.
what did your naturopath say about
I didn't
that?
talk to her in that great a detail about all the pieces,
Mm-hmm.
but like that's what medical medium would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would
The
say that.
prescription.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
antibiotics can feed. So get this. So anyways, I went south. I was in the hospital for I think 15 days in total, and it was it was a blur to me a lot of the time because I started having issues with my blood pressure. I started having issues with my organs, my kidney. I started having respiratory issues. Actually, this was right during the time where COVID was just emerging.
Yeah.
And they were like, it was to the point where it was like a bad COVID case, like the respiratory issues. I was on oxygen. There were certain days where I couldn't move. So, you know how your hospital bed has the two buttons on the inside to like press it up or down? I could not even move my arm like a couple of inches because I had such bad nerve pain, which when I later read the medical medium book made so much sense. So it was just awful nerve pain. I couldn't walk. I was like a human pincushion. They literally, I looked like a really, really bad junkie. Like
Do
I
you have
had
scars from it.
not here, but I was just like poked to the point where it actually was like painful.
Hurted.
And I couldn't, it was bad. I almost got transferred to the ICU. They had pumped me with so much fluid that I literally was 30 pounds over what I normally am.
What was the point of that? Do you know?
I think it was to improve my blood pressure because my blood pressure was dropping, and they were saying that if I didn't improve through this, they would have had to put like a IV into my heart or something in the ICU.
And like, what were the foods that you were being given?
Oh,
during this
exactly.
time?
Yeah, like hospital food. I mean, my husband was bringing me like smoothies and stuff from home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hospital food, so it wasn't helping anything. Anyway, so yeah, and I was already on prednisone. It just wasn't turning around, and then somehow I think they bumped up my dose of prednisone to twice the amount that I was normally taking.
Holy shit.
Which is it was the highest dose I've ever been on. It was unreal. And then I did start to turn around eventually. That part was kind of a blur. I remember at one point my family coming to visit me, and I had a couple friends come to visit me, and I could barely talk because I was so short of breath.
Wow.
And I just remember looking at their faces, like, you know when someone's like scared for you? I remember looking at their faces, and literally I had no breath, but I had enough breath to be like, stop looking at me like that.
Oh.
Like, we're going,
they're
like I'm getting
concerned.
out of here, we're gonna be fine, but like don't look at me like that.
Wow.
Yeah, like it was bad at some point.
Cringy.
Yeah.
Super cringy.
Scary.
Yeah, so it was rough, and I remember asking the doctors, like, am I gonna get out of here? Because it was that bad.
That's scary.
I remember being scared and I wasn't even thinking about myself, which is the weird thing. I was thinking about my kids. Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking
They're
about
so
my
little.
kids.
They're so little.
They're so little. They're 4.5 and 3 now, but that was a year ago. So
I couldn't
it
imagine.
was 2 and 3.5. I missed my son's second birthday while I was in there, which was so sad. But anyways, I ended up turning things around somehow. And I got out of the hospital, but it took me months and months and months to recover. Like, I could barely walk up the stairs to get into my house. Like a half flight of stairs, I could barely walk from my couch to my bed. I looked in the mirror, I didn't know who the hell I was looking at, because when you're on prednisone, it causes you to hold weight and water in weird places. Like, they call, like, you would hear the term, like, moon face, which sounds weird. My face was like this. Like, it was like, I should see if I can find a picture. Like, my face was like a balloon, like the moon.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, I did not know who I was looking at. I had, like, literal roid rage. I was just
poor husband.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Moods everywhere. It was rough. And during this time is when I had my sister-in-law. I mean, I had always followed the medical medium on Instagram, but I never followed, like, his protocol. Like, I'd heard of the celery juicing, etc., but I'd never
So you
tried
followed
it.
him, but you had nothing to do with his
Exactly.
systems.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my sister-in-law kept saying to me, like, you need to try this. And so I ended up buying the book and ordered it. And I remember, like, reading it and just being like, oh my God.
Fucking mind blown.
My mind was blown because the way he explains it
I know.
in his book was everything I experienced. So that is where I first it clicked in my freaking brain what my naturopath had said years ago in terms of, this is not your body attacking itself.
Yeah.
This is a virus. This is the Epstein-Barr virus. So, and he explained all the different stages of it, how it starts as just dormant. And then
stage 1.
Stage 1, it's dormant.
Oh.
Stage 2, it's mono. Stage 2
Oh.
is mononucleosis.
Yes.
Stage 3, oh yes. And so it
I had mono when I was a kid.
Well, we got to get rid of the Epstein-Barr virus in there. It's in there.
and it lives, okay, get this,
Wow.
it lives in your liver and spleen most often. Guess what was enlarged when I had my flare-ups?
Your spleen.
Yep.
Oh.
It was like this is what I mean, where everything made way too much sense, and then how it eventually triggers your brain and nervous system.
And that's what happened to her.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So
I
you
was
figured
like,
out
oh
what
my
it was on
God.
your
Like,
own.
it just, like, oh, it gave me goosebumps. And
well,
I was like,
medical medium helped you.
Yeah. Like,
And her sister-in-law
Yeah.
was an angel that she
Yeah.
dropped it off for you.
Yeah, which you remind me of my sister-in-law, Christina.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Christina, my husband. Yeah, my husband has said that too.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, he said you really remind him of his sister, which is just kind of weird. But
Is it? Is it weird? We're not about coincidences here.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, anyways, I had started this medical medium. I was like juicing celery.
Hold on. What else? Tell Tiffany very closely what else feeds Epstein-Barr virus.
Ooh. So what?
The worst thing.
Eggs.
Oh, shit.
Oh shit.
She said that because we shared
How did
that
I
day
know that
creating
you're-
almond
yeah.
this morning.
Oh. So,
And there's no coincidence that I called during that time. And then Dave got on the phone. And he's saying this. I'm like, Dave, I'm like, don't tell me that she's having eggs. Like, don't tell me.
oh
Anyways.
no, yeah. Eggs, gluten, dairy, soy, corn.
Yes, corn's terrible.
Love popcorn.
I know.
Okay,
Me
back
too.
to you.
Yeah, anyway, so I had read all this and I was like, oh my God, it made so much sense. It made sense why when I started seeing my naturopath and I cut out the gluten and the dairy. And I mean, I still ate some eggs because she didn't tell me about eggs. But I was so good during that time. Oh, and heavy metals. Heavy metals feeds Epstein-Barr virus as well.
Mental detox. This is why we do this.
Yeah. So I started all of that stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, this gave me hope. Like, it gave me so much hope. And yeah, so I started on that journey.
I wanted to say one thing quickly, what just popped into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Think of how many times that you've been on the prednisone and how many times they kept doubling it. So Tiffany's thought, what Tiffany said was, it gets worse every time. So, you know, once it attacked different areas. So just imagine you don't find the medical medium, you don't find a way to naturally heal yourself, and all they do is keep upping the prednisone. What would happen when you can't up it any longer?
Well, yeah, I don't
That's fucking scary.
It is scary. It's super scary.
I want to know now.
I know. I don't.
I know.
No, what you do is you take life into your own hands.
Yeah.
And you fucking follow people that know how to cure yourself naturally with natural health.
Yeah.
And medical medium.
Yeah. So I started the medical medium. I started talking to the angels that he talks about.
Yeah.
And okay, so previous to this I was never brought up in any sort of like religion and I always believed in a higher power, but I was not what you would call like spiritual or religious. Like nothing. But this was the first time where I was like, no, when I was in the hospital in those rough days, I was freaking praying. Like I was like sending messages to the universe, to God, to whoever.
Yeah, you're like, anybody.
Help me get out of this. Give me guidance. Anyway, so.
And that's exactly what you got when you got out.
Yeah.
Your sister-in-law dropped you that book. Don't ever discredit anything like that.
Yeah. Oh no, it's
you ask for help and you surrender, and your help actually comes really fast.
It's crazy. So I started doing all the heavy metal detox and all the medical medium stuff. Well, 6 weeks after I got out of the hospital, I had a fever again. And it was like a low fever, and I was really tired, and I had kind of a sore throat. Well, of course, I tell my doctor, and she says, okay, I need you to go get tested for COVID, because this was in April. So I go get a blood test, and then I'm sitting outside the COVID clinic outside of Royal Columbian Hospital, and I get a call from my rheumatologist, and she's like, Natalie, I'm so sorry. You need to go back to the hospital right now. She said, I just got your blood test results. They literally called her because my white blood cell count was 0. My neutrophils, those are the thing. Your neutrophils is what fights off any sort of infection.
Yeah.
They were 0. Exactly.
So this is, has the book been dropped off to you yet?
Yeah. So I started, and this is why I felt so discouraged. Like I was like swallowing tears. Like here I'm trying to do all this stuff, and what the hell is happening? Like what the fuck? Yeah. And then so I was like, well, can I go home and see my kids and like get my stuff? And she's like, no, you need to go to the hospital.
Oh my God.
So I had to drive across the street back to Royal Columbian Hospital and admit myself. I was like in tears.
Oh, I could imagine.
This was full blown COVID at this point, so no visitors, no nothing, and it made me feel so much for all the people that are like isolated in the hospital with no visitors at this point, like
or even like old age home. Homes. How
like,
sad is that? It's
so awful. It was that week that I was in there that time was literal emotional torture because I felt fine at that point physically.
Yeah.
But I was in a room, isolated by myself in the COVID ward.
How scary is that? You don't even
with
have
no
COVID.
neutrophils.
What the?
With no wait, but like, how does that make sense?
It makes no sense.
I don't know.
She doesn't have COVID. She just has low neutrophils.
That's it. What's her name? What's their name?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Who did that?
Yeah, Tiffany's ready.
Who did it?
So I had to get the
Nobody's
COVID test, and then I had to sit there in the COVID ward until my COVID test came back negative.
Oh my God.
So here I am sitting there waiting.
So they shoved the thing up your nose?
Yeah. That was the second time I was tested, because the first time when I was in there with all the respiratory issues, they tested me for COVID. And that was when it was just starting. Like, it was like, what's COVID? COVID what? Like, you heard about it in China, but it was not here yet. And so they tested me for it. Anyways, this was the second time they tested me for it. And here I'm in the hospital. They're giving me these shots to try to boost my neutrophils, which again, at this point, I had read all the medical medium stuff, and all I'm thinking is, shots going into my body.
Yeah.
What kind of metals are these?
Yes.
Where's my celery juice? I want my
Yes.
celery juice. My husband could not come visit me or
Oh
bring me
my
anything.
God.
So I actually had him. I made the nurses go down to the parking lot
Mhm.
and pick up a bag, 2 big bags of oranges, apples,
Good
ginger,
girl. Good girl.
lemon, ginger tea, all of my zinc,
Good.
like all my supplements. I was like, I need them.
Good for you, yes.
So the nurses brought it up to my room, and yeah, basically I had to just sit there and wait for these shots to kick in, for my neutrophils to go back up, which took 6 days.
Did they give you
Oh.
Neupogen?
No, it was
Neupogen?
called GFCR shot or something like that. And I knew what the shot was because when my dad was fighting his cancer, his lymphoma that he had, the chemo often will put you into this state of neutropenia, it's called. It kills your white blood cells. And so he was getting GFCR. Something
No,
like
I know
that.
exactly because my son's dad, he went through the same thing, and he had to get at the end. They had to give him these shots, and why isn't it coming to us? It's
Gastrophil. No,
it's like G. It's like
G something. I could Google it, but
yeah.
let's see.
But yes, he had to do that too because the chemo wipes out everything, and you're basically at
Everything.
ground zero. So
Yeah.
you have nothing left to fight. There's nothing left to fight in your body. So it has to be given. Are you sure it's called GFC?
Oh, I'm on airplane mode.
Oh.
Awesome. I don't know what it's called.
It's okay.
But something like that.
It's okay.
So anyway, so here I was getting all these shots, and then basically my worst nightmare walked through the door, an oncologist. She was a hematologist oncologist.
So thinking that you
Blood
have
doctor,
the
cancer
blood.
doctor. Yeah. So she walks through my door and she says, well, first of all, she says, we need to explore obviously why this is happening. And she talked about, this could be due to a bone marrow disorder, which I knew what that meant, but I had to ask the question. And yes, that's where the C word came up, and lymphoma, leukemia, which especially after just losing my dad to that, that's obviously really scary. And then she had also said that occasionally this drug that I was on top of the prednisone, it's called omeprazole. Actually, this is important. Omeprazole. It's like because prednisone, it can create ulcers in your stomach because it's so nasty. So you get this omeprazole. It's for reflux, but it basically coats your stomach, or so that's how they explained to me. So I was taking this omeprazole to help protect my stomach, but she had said occasionally there's been very rare side effects that can cause neutropenia.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, here I am, and she's saying, yeah, I think we need to get a bone marrow biopsy done. Here I am alone in the hospital by myself, getting told that I have to get tested for cancer, and it was scary as shit, especially after everything I've been through. And then she says something to me that I was like, boom, this is why I'm here. She says to me, do you know, she's like, I was looking through your chart, and I had to go way into like the depths of your chart. Did you know that you tested positive for EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, when you were here last time?
Boom.
I was like, oh, like it hit me like a freaking ton of bricks.
You knew everything, but that's
what I had read in the medical media book.
Goosebumps,
right?
Goosebumps.
Because I had believed what I had read, but this was like, oh my god,
this is
like,
confirming
I had EBV.
everything,
and it was active EBV during that time. Mm-hmm. No one told me that. Nobody.
What's their name? What's their name? What the fuck?
Yeah, no one told me that, and actually nobody had told my.
And that's why you had to
rheumatologist
get to
either.
this point, though.
And that's why I was like, boom. When I look back, it's crazy because when I was in that, it seemed like the worst thing in the world. I was like, I was scared for my life. And now when I look back, I'm like, holy shit, I'm grateful for that.
Yay, there's the word grateful.
Grateful for that experience. And I understand now why I had to get put through the freaking torture of the second time.
To be here, motherfucker!
Yes. And to really understand that I had EBV. And so,
to take your life into your own hands.
Yes.
And if you didn't do all that and go through all that, you wouldn't have been to the place to take your life into your own hands and be on top of it and understand that you have no other choice but to live this healthy lifestyle and be an advocate.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Girlfriend! You've been through it.
Yeah.
Wow. Keep going. I know you got more.
Well, no. So after that, I mean, my neutrophils finally went up,
Yeah.
and I was so happy. The doctor came in to tell me, and I was like, I just started crying, and he was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "I'm so happy! Like, just get me the F out of here! Like, I need my
Calm
celery
down.
juice. I need
Yeah.
my shit.
No, now you're like, okay, I know what I got to
I
tackle.
need to go, and I was already on that train, and it killed me to be in the hospital away from all that, and like with this crappy hospital food that I was eating, and I had all these restrictions put down. Like if you're in the hospital, no dairy, no wheat, no gluten,
no eggs.
no eggs, no pork. Like literally my list of the no's, like I was just getting like food without sauce and like just vegetables,
Yeah.
which is good.
Sauce.
Like,
No
but it was
sauce.
like hospital. It was like unseasoned hospital food.
Yeah, not the.
If that
Not
sounds
like-
delicious.
Oh,
That doesn't
And
sound delicious.
not
I don't know what
gluten-free.
does. Yeah.
okay. So
Anyway, so I got out of the hospital. I got my bone marrow biopsy. It came back negative,
which we knew because you was just
which I knew. But I want to say, like, I went and got my bone marrow biopsy. Oh yeah, and because things have to happen in threes, it wasn't enough for me to be in the hospital twice. I got my bone marrow biopsy. Everything went fine. And then I got home and I was like, what is dripping down my back? Yeah, it started like uncontrollably bleeding.
Of
To the
course.
point that I then had to go back to
Oh,
my doctor. They would have said go to the hospital, but because of COVID and everything that I've been through, they're like, no, just come to the doctor's
What was
office.
dripping from your back?
Okay, when you get a bone marrow biopsy, they shove a giant fat needle into your bone in your hip, like in the back of your hip.
I was in the room when Cassius's
Oh.
dad had it, and it was wild because
Oh,
you can't.
God.
This is the thing, you guys. You can't freeze. But Tiffany, you can't even stick a needle in to freeze the bone. Bone can't be frozen.
Yeah.
And do you want to know what they do? Hold this.
Oh dear.
They literally hold on to you and they crank it into your skin and into your
Yeah.
body, and you can hear it cranking into your bone to
For
get
me-
into the center to get a piece of the bone marrow.
They have to take out some bone marrow. They have to like use a syringe and take out
Yes.
the insides, and then they have to get a piece of the bone. And I remember the guy literally with all his
brutal.
weight on me,
Yes.
he wasn't cranking. He was like, huh, huh. He was like
Yes.
shoving it into me.
Yes.
Like I was like, yeah. Anyways, that all was over, and I was like, like
Oh,
I can
God.
breathe. It's over. And then
For
I went
sure.
home, and blood was dripping down my back.
Oh,
That's
God.
sorry, that's TMI.
That's-
But
no,
then I
it's
ended up
not.
having to go to the doctor, and it was not clotting. Like it wasn't. And my platelets were fine at that point, but it wasn't stopping. And yeah, so that was all fun. And then
all fun.
the days
fine.
between when
I'm
I
fine.
got that and when I got my results, I think I like almost convinced myself that I had cancer. Like I was not in a good place.
No.
And that was one thing that I wanted to highlight is that you can convince yourself
Yeah.
exactly
Whatever you
whichever
want.
way you want to go, you can convince yourself.
No
Because
matter what it is.
I was laying there and I could feel my lymph nodes throbbing, and I was like, oh my God, this is cancer. Like I had convinced myself that I had cancer. And I didn't. And then it went away the second I found out I didn't have cancer. It's
And
like,
this
and
is-
it's like an
this is-
imagined thing.
Yes.
It's the placebo effect.
And when people instill fear
Fear.
into other people, even just like with this whole COVID
Mm-hmm.
thing, and they're blasting it everywhere on the news, people are fearful.
Mhm.
They're fearful of getting something instead of just being like, no, my body knows what to do. My
Mhm.
body's in control of itself. You know? It's like, just like you can go to, I was going to say that, you can go to the doctor's office and they can say, your day is amazing. And then the next thing they're like, oh, you have cancer. And then you skyrocket into this plummeting pool of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Like,
Well, a lot of
That-
people
that
that
quick.
get diagnosed with cancer, from my understanding, don't typically want to know, because when they do find out, it gets so much worse.
right.
Obviously, you need to find out, but as soon
Of
as
course.
they do find out, their symptoms and
Oh, it's-
everything's just like...
There's denial, there's
Yeah.
anger, there's resentment. You have to go through all these things, and it's very hard and very scary. And I believe with anything, anybody that goes through anything in life, even just the regular person, needs that help of counseling and to understand and not feel alone. Like the amount of times that you felt alone,
Mhm.
and even somebody going through cancer, like even anything, right?
Mhm.
We feel alone often,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be alone.
No.
There's another alternative.
No, you
Just
don't have to
remember
be
that.
alone.
Oh, for sure.
So
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. So basically, and at that point too, it hit me. You know, I went as far as to talk to, like, I remember my mom driving me home from this stupid bone marrow biopsy and me bleeding everywhere and whatever, and like breaking down and telling her, you know, if I go, can you like help take care of my kids?
Oh.
Like, I was like, and I just like bawled. Like, it makes me a little teary-eyed right
Of
now.
course.
Because, and I had just said to her, like, I have so much life left to live. I remember saying that, like, I have so much life left to live, and I have so much to give.
Yeah, you do.
And so, yeah, it makes me emotional.
That's okay.
Makes
Be
me emotional.
Yeah.
This is a
Emotional.
space
But then
to
I was
be-
okay. I know, right?
Oh my god.
This is good for you to share your story.
it
Now.
is.
Maybe people are
Yeah.
going to be listening and helping, and
Yeah, well, I hope so. And even if I could help one person, like when I was in those dark, dark places, they were very dark. And listening to podcasts and resources from people who had been in those dark places and climbed the fuck out of them, it was so inspiring and gave me so much hope. And so I was in those rough places. And from that day on, I was kind of like, whoa, like, look what you just did in your mind, you know? Like, your mind is powerful. So here I am working on the body part, you know, the medical medium, and now I'm like, okay, my mind, like, I need to watch my thoughts here, you know? And so, gosh, what happened after that? I just continued along in my medical medium journey throughout the summer, you know, doing my celery juice, weaning off of prednisone.
yes, I remember.
Finally, I got off in September, and I still wasn't like, I was still having some symptoms. I didn't expect for everything to resolve that quickly.
Yeah.
It takes time.
It
natural
takes
healing.
time, but from that point on, like, straight celery juice every single day.
Yeah.
And
And you were doing more than 16 ounces.
yeah, at times I was doing more than 16. I was up to 32. I was up to more than 32.
Yeah.
But it was a little hard on me. I could feel like
Yeah.
it was a little rough. And I swear, like, there was weird, like, I swear I was detoxing shit. Like, it was,
Obviously.
yeah,
a
like
lot.
die-off symptoms and stuff. And anyways, and then I was still, you know, asking the angels, you know, he talks about angel of healing and just asking the universe for guidance.
Spirit.
Yeah. I was just, I think that was the biggest thing that sticks out to me, is I was asking for guidance to heal and what I need to do next.
Mm.
And then my mom comes home one day and tells me she met this girl at the park with a little boy, and they were playing with the kids, and her name's Kristen. Yeah, and that's how I met Kristen, and I swear that was like a pretty big catalyst for me, because yeah, you had recommended Nikki going in for Reiki, and you had talked about your counselor. I was seeing a counselor at the time. What blows my mind is, as I was like a basket case, like, I was pretty anxious. I was having to go for blood work every single week, every week throughout all of this. And every time I had to go and check my results, I was like, my heart was just pounding, and I was
Fucking scared.
I was scared.
Mm.
Because in and amongst all of this, on top of me trying to wean off prednisone, my inflammatory markers were kind of bouncing all over the place, which normally they just stay low, and I get off prednisone and it's all awesome. But this time they were bouncing off everywhere, and my rheumatologist was telling me that she might have to put me on this biologic drug that I would have to inject in myself every single day. And to me, that sounded like the scariest thing in the world. And I did not want that.
No.
So I was having all this anxiety about my blood work, and I finally said, like, okay, I think I need to get some counseling, because, like, I can't manage this. I don't know how to manage this by myself.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind that after everything I had been through, that was not part of it. Like, what's missing in our medical community,
Yeah.
where somebody's just literally been through trauma, and then nobody recommends counseling
For the aftermath.
for the aftermath. You
that's-
literally have to be your own
Don't you
advocate.
they do that if you lose a limb? I'm
I'm
pretty
not
sure if you
sure.
lose a limb, you go to a certain hospital, certain place.
Okay.
You can't come out.
I know if you
until
have
a certain
cancer,
amount of
or
time.
for family members of somebody going through cancer treatment, they do suggest resources.
But but it's not very long. Like I remember with Cassius's dad, it was something that they informed, they talked about it. There was like a very small piece, but it's not like dealing with it later and the aftermath of afterwards. And guess what, guys? Trauma is trauma. Who isn't going to be afraid that the cancer is going to return?
Of course.
You need this, and we all need this.
Anybody would
no
benefit
matter
from counseling for
every
sure.
single human. So
it just shows how much you really have to be your own advocate, though,
yeah.
and look at it not only, as I learned, from a physical perspective, but you really have to consider the whole picture. You have to consider your physical body. You have to consider your mind, your mindset, your emotional state, as well as your energetic. Like, you literally have to look at the whole picture, because if you don't, it's just...
They're just pieces of the pie.
They're pieces of the pie.
That's all it is. Do you want to take a quick break? Because we're almost up in the hour and we still have more to go.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's just take a quick break and we'll come right back.
Yeah, because I'd like to talk about
the new stuff.
in detail about where that turning point was, and it also bringing the spirituality into your life, and then also the counseling. And I remember speaking to you and being like, wow, you have so much you've invested so much of your time into your health that that's all you know. And I remember saying, like, you need to trust in your body that it knows what it's doing,
for sure.
and to not be so fearful, because I could tell before. She's like, oh, I've got my blood results. Everything in her life revolved around what her next step was for her blood or her this. So it was kind of like,
I wasn't trusting. I wasn't like...
Just, you're living in fear.
Ooh.
I was living in fear. Yeah.
And I understand that.
And we
everybody
understand
that you were surrounded around, you trusted. And they were just kind of throwing band-aids at you, wrong diagnosis.
Prescriptions.
Yeah.
They did the best that they could with what knowledge they had.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of doctors that play in Eastern medicine.
No.
You know,
no, exactly.
They are out there.
Yeah.
They're out there. Okay, well, let's take a quick break and we'll come right back.
Sounds good.
Okay. Save this.
We're still recording right now on